Well, greetings and welcome, everyone. I'm so excited that you're here today to learn about the Layer 10 Academy and to join us for this first webinar in our series, Build Spaces People Love. Today, we're going to talk about the beginning, the foundations, giving IT a seat at the table. Let's just jump right in. So let's talk more about what we are here to do. Why are we here today? My objective here today is to share with you what we have spent the last decade or near decade, we're coming up in our 10th year, developing. And what that is really focused on is revolutionizing how spaces get built. Our mission is to make every space a living, breathing entity that enhances human existence. And to do that, we look at how to transform how technology is designed and integrated into the built environment. Here are some of the things that we're going to go through today. I'm not going to go into those in detail. I'm just going to get right to it. So now that we know why we are here, let's talk about hopefully why you are here. Who is this geared towards? First and foremost, it's commercial real estate professionals. People who are developers, architects, engineers, project managers, building operators, facility managers, and most importantly, it's really for the innovators. It's for people who are looking for a better way to integrate technology into the built environment. People who know that the way we do it now is not ideal, that there is a better way. Just as importantly, who is this not geared towards? Hopefully, everybody on the line is still on the line and nobody has dropped based on that. Um, but it is important to note that, if you are here for a conversation, a dialogue about the latest and greatest technologies, that is not what we're going to be talking about today. The smart city and smart building industries are rapidly evolving. They're always moving, and that could present a challenge. But what we are going to talk about is the framework, the methodology that we've created to avoid getting lock in on that, to avoid that being the obstacle for creating the ideal environment for the end users. This is also not a tutorial in artificial intelligence. AI is a, an extraordinary space. It's one that I think has the opportunity to create change in almost everything that we do. And I use it. We use it in our business. We use it in how we run our business, and how it impacts the built environment. I believe there is going to be an impact, and I'm planning a series on this. But I'm not prepared to talk about that today. And sort of to the previous question, that's not really what this is about. This is about the framework. It's not about the technology. And you'll understand as we go why that's important. Most importantly, who this is for, who this is not for, is for the people who are comfortable with the way things are going right now. If you feel that, yeah, the technology is kind of a pain, but it's fine, it's good enough. If you don't see that there is an opportunity for you to add to your bottom line through the implementation, the thoughtful and intentional implementation of technology into your space, this is probably not going to resonate with you. Okay, so that covers why you are here. So let's talk briefly, because this makes me uncomfortable, as why I am here. Well, I am the founder and CEO of Layer 10, and along with my colleagues, we are the creators of the Layer 10 methodology. I'm also the author of an upcoming book that will be published later this year called Layer 10, Building Tomorrow, the Layer 10 Way. I'm also board president or co-board president with my wife Zara, at Trailhead Community. I'm going to refer to Trailhead as a case study later on. But most of all, I'm passionate about creating people first spaces that are functional, adaptable, and valuable, and uh, positioned to evolve as technology evolves. That's what we created 10 years ago, and 9 years ago in 2016. And that's what we are now launching the Academy to teach others how to do. So the one thing that I have learned from the 613 Marvel movies I've seen in the last decade is that everything often comes down to the origin story. Now, the good news is you don't have to wait for the prequel to hear our origin story. So let's just begin there. Let's start at the beginning. And I'll start with an honest confession. The first time I ever had the opportunity to work in this space, it wasn't by choice. It wasn't something that I sought out. I was working for another consulting firm at the time, and it was assigned to me. This is the next project. They called me up and said, hey, we've got this client from another office who's relocating their headquarters to Denver. We're taking over the project, and we'd like you to go in and help them manage the IT components of the bill. This was a completely new space for me. I had no experience in development or construction, and even IT infrastructure was a stretch. I came up as a software guy. My first job was as a COBOL CICS programmer. I'm software, not a hardware guy. I probably didn't even know enough to be dangerous, to be honest with you. But the one thing that you learn as a consultant is how to get comfortable with discomfort, how to be willing and have the confidence to come into an unknown situation, oftentimes in a complete mess, and know how to ask the right questions, know how to lead people to get to the answers that you need in order to be successful. It's being the person that when the pilot goes down, he raises his hand and says, yeah, I'll grab the controls and figure out how to land this thing. And that's where I was as a consultant. And once that project started, I very quickly came to absolutely love the work. To be a part of building something, to see the physical manifestations of your effort. It's a rarity in consulting. We're working on processes and systems and back office, and it's sometimes can be very challenging and very interesting work, but you don't get to see it. It's not something that you can touch. And when I drive by that building, this was before Layer 10 even existed, was even an idea, mind you. When I drive by that building that I had a part of, I consider it mine. I take pride of ownership in that building and every building that we have touched since then. And it actually reminded me of what I first went to school for, which was to be an architect, coincidentally. And for my architect friends on the call, you have my utmost respect. It is not an easy business to be in. It is not an easy degree to obtain. It took me less than a month in my Design 1 class at the University of Florida, go Gators, go Gators, to realize that I am not cut out for this. I lack the discipline. And frankly, most importantly, I lack that why that is really needed to survive that grind and turn myself into an architect. And for those of you who made it through that, my hats off to you. But it did remind me of that. It did remind me of that desire and that childhood feeling of building something. You know, I was a Lego kid. I was a plastic model kid. I was always building something. I think I was 12 years old when my dad, who is not of that mind, bought home our first gas grill, and I put it together at 12 years old. My mother was a little nervous the first time we lit it up, but it never caught fire, never burned anything down. But to close that part of my chapter, I ended up graduating with a business management degree with a focus in information sciences. Oh, yeah, go Gators. This is visual proof of that story. And I spent the vast majority of my career in the consulting space. So coming back to that office that I was with another firm and they asked me to come on, and this is the last project I worked on at that firm. It proved to be the most fulfilling work that I had ever done. And not long after that, for other reasons, I decided to leave consulting and go get a real job, as we consultants joke amongst ourselves. I was hired by and brought in to an international education company to help stand up their project management office. The high education products, software products that they created. And it was good work. I enjoyed it. At the beginning, it was much like consulting. It was a small fledgling group of 2.5 people. And it needed structure, it needed leadership, it needed processes, systems, templates, very much like a consulting project. But once I had that stood up and operating, I got bored. I kept looking for more to do, something more to build. And that realization combined with the memory of that last consulting project I did on that office brought me to the first, you might say, epiphany in my journey. I like building things. I like creating things, creating something new, identifying challenging problems and finding creative solutions. Running something that is working is not that interesting to me. So I started looking for my next project within that company. And it was around the third or fourth time, I guess, that my boss finally said to me to stop consulting to her and just go run the office. And yes, sometimes I could be that stubborn and it could take that many iterations for me for it to sink in. But I realized at that point that I was put on this earth to be a consultant, not only to build things, but to teach, to train, to coach, to bring people up into a new level. And so I'm at this company, I'm feeling stuck. I'd hit a wall. I'm 18 months into this new job. I'd left consulting and I was absolutely bored out of my gourd. I had this self-running team and I had little or anything to do on any given day or week. I spent most of my days dreaming about, frankly, what I wanted to be when I grow up, which is quite a humbling conversation for a 40-year-old man to be having with himself. And so thinking about what I wanted to build, I decided that I started thinking about building my own business. I launched a couple of side hustles, a sales consulting business with a friend and a social media marketing business. And neither panned out, to put it mildly. They were both epic failures, but I learned a lot. Some lessons are more expensive than others. And those I like to refer to those as tuition payments. I just paid to learn something. Sometimes very high Harvard level tuition payments, but I was paying to learn. And those payments did add value. They did pay off. I'm confident that had it not been for those two failures, I would not have been in a position to realize the success that we have realized with Layer 10 to be where I am right now. So around that time, around the failure of that second side hustle, the company announced layoffs. And I saw this as an opportunity to exit. I raised my hand. Now, to be perfectly honest, they probably were not waiting for me to raise my hand. I think my name was already on that list because of, well, frankly, because of the success that I had. That I had this organization that no longer needed a leader at my level to run. It was running on its own just fine. But I like to make sure I point out that I did raise my hand to make me feel a little bit better about the only time I had ever been asked to leave a company or a client for that matter. So I'm expecting to get laid off. I am expecting a decent severance package, so I know I've got some cushion. And if I'm going to make a third run at starting my own business, now is the time. And actually, before the layoffs were officially announced, I got a call from that same client who I worked for in my last consulting gig. They told me they're building another building and they wanted me to come on and lead it. I said, I scheduled lunch in a couple of weeks, said, let's talk then. And so fast forward past that, a couple of months later, and I am back at that same client as an independent consultant. And that staying independent was by design. I had the option to go back to my previous firm, but I'm still thinking about this business and I don't want to get stuck there. So I come on as an independent, and man, was I happy to be doing that work again. Not just back in consulting, but just within this niche, technology implementation for pre-construction. I just love being back in that environment. And I started asking myself, is this that opportunity? Is this the business? Is there an opportunity to launch a consulting firm that focuses solely on integrating technology into the built environment? So I partnered up with a former colleague and we started socializing the idea. Everybody we knew in this space, architects, developers, contractors, electricians. Luckily, my founding partner is an electrical engineer by trade. And so he had a lot of connections there. A lot of his colleagues didn't go into consulting, they went into building construction and engineering. So we had a lot of conversations, and to a person, they all loved the idea. They'd never heard of it. They didn't know anybody was out there doing it. They couldn't wait for us to get started so that they could hire us. At least that's what they all said. Not all of them hired us, but in all honesty, we actually found that enthusiasm a bit intimidating. How is it that we are the first persons to think of this? Well, we couldn't find anybody to disagree with us, so we went for it and we launched Layer 10. Now, my final epiphany realization in this journey was in an early sales meeting. This is a sales story I tell often. It was our first or second year, I guess our second year of doing business, and we had invested in writing some sponsored content for a platform called BizNow. They do conferences and publications, newsletters. And for those of you who don't know, that a sponsored content is when you write it, but they're not paying you for your knowledge. You're paying them to distribute your article. And it was a couple $1,000s maybe, but it was the biggest investment we had made in the beginning of our firm. And in response to that article, we got a grand total of one email, a single email from a man by the name of Sean Temple. His email simply read, "My name is Sean Temple. I'm working on a project called Middle Landing. Here's a link. Here's my phone number. I think I need your help." And so, not wanting to seem too anxious, I waited a good solid 7-8 minutes before calling him. And I caught him at the airport, boarding a plane. And we scheduled time to meet on his return. And I asked him to meet me strategically in the brand spanking new lobby of that building we had just finished, that first client, or one of our only two clients at the time. And it gave me the opportunity to share the work that we do. We started in the lobby. We stayed in the lobby. We didn't even go upstairs. We didn't tour the conference rooms or the MDF, but we were able to highlight some of the things that we do. It was really just a snapshot of our work. And it didn't help. It was a beautiful space, still had that new office smell. And after that quick tour, we walked across the street for lunch, and still having that getting to know you chit chat. And as any of you in sales know, it's the typical process when you're having a meeting with a prospect over a meal is it's all chit chat and small talk until the server takes your order. And when they walk away, the conversation shifts to business, which it did. And the first question I was inspired to ask was, "Sean, why do you want Miller's Landing to be a smart city?" That was all I asked. He leaned back in his chair and he crossed his arms, but I didn't take it as a defensive posture. He said, "You know what, Ken? I'm talking to," and he rattled off 3 or 4 smart city manufacturers' names you would absolutely recognize. Good companies, good products that we recommend for our clients. And he continued, "Nobody has asked me that question. All they do is they come in with a box full of gear, they drop it on the table, and they tell me this is what I need. They don't know the first thing about what we're trying to do. That's why I need you on the team." So you can see why I tell that story often. It took one question to close the biggest project that we'd ever done. And that was sort of that final light bulb moment for me, the moment that made me realize that we were truly onto something. We were, again, already a couple of years into our firm at that point, but you have those little moments when you look back on your startup journey that tick you up, that you give you that hockey stick growth and validate that what you are onto is something truly special. That was our hockey stick. And it made me realize what was missing from the process, the why. Technology is expensive. It's difficult to work with. It's difficult to implement. It has its challenges. What we brought to the table was a structure, a methodology to select the appropriate technology for our clients' needs. a design-first, human-centered, product-agnostic approach to make sure we're aligning the right technology and the right team, dependent not on the latest and greatest gadgetry, not on sales incentives, not on gimmicks that might not survive the market, but technology selected and implemented to satisfy our clients' unique needs, depending on what they are trying to achieve and for whom, not on what we're incented to sell. We created a model that aligned our success with our client's success, not aligned with how much we could sell, but on the experience that we created. That was the root of our business. And up until 2023, our proof was in the fruit. Over that period, we enjoyed a 100% client retention rate. Every client that we ever worked with, including that client where we started that meeting in that office, is still an active client to this day. Now that shifted in 2023 with some of the market changes. We've had projects get canceled and mothballed and haven't started back up. But up until that point, once we delivered on one project for a new client, we were just an assumed part of the team. Now, developers often work with the same architects over and over again, the same engineers over and over again, the same GCs. We were part of that team. Sometimes we didn't even know there was a new project until we got the invite to the kickoff meeting. And what we have learned during the 9 years since being in that business is what we intend to impart to you as part of the Layer 10 Academy. How to master technology integration strategies to create smarter, future-ready spaces, how to stay ahead of emerging trends, and to lead with confidence in this ever-evolving space. So this is that methodology. This is the secret sauce. Design first, human-centric, product agnostic. It seems simple, but it's not necessarily easy. Is this making sense to you guys? Are you guys getting this? Hopefully I'm clearly articulating this. I'm going to go into some details here. So we lead with design, and this is not, for those of you who work in this space, who are part of the design phase of building new projects, whether you're an architect, developer, or whatever space that you work in, this is not new to you. This is how all projects get built. It's just not done with technology. IT isn't given a seat at the table. When I'm in those rooms, nobody even knows who I am. Well, why are you here? And then soon they understand what the purpose is. And we, especially with technology, we don't. All right, let me say this differently. When specific products are designed, they're designed with a specific smart city project, an intelligent building management system. It is designed with the human in mind, the products themselves. But how they are selected, integrated together to create a cohesive whole and implemented into the built environment takes no consideration into the human factor. Not just how people, the occupiers of the space are going to experience the technology, but the operators. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And then the third piece is maintaining that product agnosticity. And what this is geared to address is to correct how things are currently done. Our biggest competitor in this field is really the status quo, which is doing nothing. We're not out writing RFPs for other firms like ours, against other firms like ours to win the work. We're just going to do it the way we've always done it, which is towards the end of the design phase. Sometimes the build phase has already started, and somebody decides, we should probably figure out how to network this property, how to get some audio visual, some physical security, IoT, all of those devices. Maybe we should be talking to somebody about that. And typically those are the integrators. And these integrators, I'm going to talk about them a little bit here. They are not our enemy. We actually we worried when we were launching this business that they might see us as competitors and we might end up at odds with them. But the opposite has proven to be true. They are great partners of ours. The ones that work well are the ones that we recommend, but we're not locked into anybody. And they, in fact, some of those partners have brought us into their clients. They're under contract with a client. And they ask us to come in to help manage the entire thing because their needs are greater than what they realize. But with all due respect to them, they are not positioned they're not equipped to do the level of design work that really is necessary to truly elevate a space. They are used to what they do. And a lot of that depends on the specific engineer you get within the firm, how creative he is, how knowledgeable he or she is. But generally speaking, you're going to get from them the same thing everybody else does. And they're not, they can't offer you the world. They can't offer you everything that's out there. There may be a very exciting, perfectly aligned system for what you're trying to do, but if they're not under contract with that product manufacturer, they can't offer it to you, and they're not going to. And they have other internal incentives, sales incentives, and markups, margins that are better on some products than others. So they're incented to push specific gear, which it's going to be good, it's going to work, it's going to be fine, but maybe it's not the perfect fit. And further, they're not going to integrate, they're not going to work with the other integrators to make sure that there is a support solution, an operational solution, wrapping the whole thing so that you know what you're doing after they leave. Once they're gone, they're gone. So we take that out of the equation. We don't start with the technology. We start with the design. We start with the experience. What are we trying to do, and for whom? Is it, if you're building a hotel, is it the business traveler or the long weekend, wealthy young family that's adventurous? Those are very different user groups with very different needs. And that is already designed into the space and the furnishings and the landscaping and the aesthetic of the space, but it's not designed into the technology. And this is a miss. And this is the miss that we are trying to correct the miss that we are trying to correct. So by starting with everything that could be done and then determining what should be done, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. You have to take into consideration market availability, the client's tolerance for risk, how bleeding edge do you want to be across all the different dimensions of the technology, from mobility to security to communications and video conferencing. Those levels may be different. Budget, interoperability between the systems, operational costs, not just the cost, the capital expense up front, but how much does it cost to operate and how easily is it to maintain and who is going to maintain it? Deploying these sophisticated systems where nobody is equipped to understand how to actually run it and maintain it, it's not going to get used and it's going to be a waste of money. So we solve all of those problems. Now, hopefully, again, this is making sense to you. You guys are getting this. Let's talk about maybe some of the concerns that you might have. You might feel like you lack the technical expertise to do this. And we have designed the academy to meet you where you're at. If you feel you're too new to this field, if you feel you just don't have the technical chops, it's not built for that. I remind you where I was when I did my first project. Now, I worked in tech, or I had worked in tech. I hadn't touched a piece of code in probably 10 years at that point, but I came up in that space. But as a software guy, not a hardware guy, they're two very different worlds. What we've done is we've designed and develop these foundational principles that will set you up for success no matter how technical you are. We will meet you where you're at. You may feel that you are not creative enough. Again, I say that it's creativity is about starting from scratch. It's about these proven frameworks, tools, and methodologies that we have developed that get amazing results. You may have a time constraint in your life, and so we will, the sessions will be live, but they'll be recorded, and that you will have lifetime access to those recordings, so that if you can't make a class, if you can't fit into that schedule, life happens, things happen at work, and you're not able to be available at the live time, those replays are available so that you can learn at your own pace. And you may have a fear of failure. So we've established some personalized support in a community of peers to help guide you through the process and help lead you through that. I'd like to include a quote here from Kane Minkus, who is somebody I've only recently come across. The name of his company, I think, is Industry Rockstar, and he works with entrepreneurs and teaches them how to leverage technology. And he shared this quote on a webinar I was on recently. We can have all the technology, but it makes no difference if we don't master the technique. That's what this is about. That's your biggest takeaway, is that it isn't about the technology. It's about the process of how you get there. And here's the fun part. The answer is almost always yes. I'll tell a story here. I was in a design charrette with architects for two properties we were building as part of phase one of this mixed-use development, an office and a hotel, adjacent hotel. And we were talking about how um, we were talking about what we were going after is those active travelers. This is part of the hotel was located behind the hotel were a number of trails, an extensive trail system. And so we were designing a bike shop into the lobby. We were designing ski trips up to the mountains. And so we were really looking at those active travelers and how to attract them. And we were talking about gamifying it. Having an opt-in solutions. When you check in, you have the option of getting wristbands for all your family members, counting your steps, checking in at the bike shop, logging your miles, going to the fitness center, the pool, and all of those things, and putting up boards, leaderboards, sort of like at Orange Theory Fitness, that tracks you, and it can be anonymous, doesn't have to be Wilkinson family. It can tracking you against the other families and other people who have opted in, and that's where we were. And one of the architects turned to me and said, "Ken, I don't know if this is possible, but," and I interrupted him and said, "Yes, what is your question?" And it got a laugh, but it made a point that almost anything you can think of from a technology perspective can be done. But to go back to what I was saying previously, that doesn't mean it should be done. The latest and greatest is always not what's right for the client. Okay. So some other limiting beliefs you may have is that this is too far ahead of its time. The industry is just simply too rigid for change. And I can tell you that I have found this not to be the case. The industry is slow moving and has been slow moving for decades, but I think the industry is ready for change, especially as we see ourselves predicting ourselves, hoping that we're coming out of some of those macroeconomic challenges that we've been facing the last few years. And those who are ready to adapt are the ones who are going to succeed. I'll tell a story of how we sell what we do has changed over the life of the firm. Very early on, I gave a pitch to some work at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. Outside the North Gate, they were building a hotel. They have since built, without us, regrettably, a hotel and a new welcome center outside the North Gate. Every time I drive by it, it eats me up that we didn't win that work. But it was a very interesting meeting. It was an introduction, and he sort of begrudgingly took the meeting when I finally got him on the phone. And then when I showed up a couple of weeks later, the first thing he said to me before we were even comfortable in our chairs was, "I don't know why I'm talking to you." He said, "I don't understand what you're going to bring to the table that I can't just call Comcast and they can set it all up." And he, like the previous sales story, he was sitting back in his chair with his arms crossed, but not in a positive way, in a very negative way. And we had some technical challenges on top of all that. We could not get the audio visual to work in the conference room, but luckily I brought two copies, hard copies of the presentation, which I don't always do. And I shared with him when I turned it away. He didn't even lean forward. He's just looking down his nose at it on the table a couple of feet from him. And I start my pitch and I'm flipping his slides for him as I talk. And from that start, when I got to the last slide, the close slide, and I've got the three options, the bronze, silver, gold. By that time, he's leaning forward. He's got his hands on the table. He's pointing to the gold. He said, "This is what I need. I just need you to come in. I get it. I understand it. I understand what you do. I need you to take the whole thing on, just so I don't have to worry about it." And since then, now again, regrettably, we didn't win that work. But that short story and that single sales meeting sort of marks how things have changed in this space that we've been working in over the life of the firm. That at the beginning, it was really pulling teeth. It was telling the story, explaining to them what we do and why they need it. They'd never heard of us because nobody else is out there doing it. So they didn't know to call us. And over the last several years, that's shifted. Instead of why are you here and why am I talking to you, it's I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping you can help me. We started getting calls. Hey, I heard you can help me with this. So there's a realization that there are opportunities being lost in the development of projects by not adopting this technology forward approach. So another limiting belief that you may have is that you're not working on the projects for which this would be helpful. Let me tell you that these tools are going to help shape the projects that you have, and more importantly, shape the projects that you want, what you want to be doing next. And this will prepare you for that next big project. You want to train for, invest in training for the job that you want, not the job that you have. If you're already doing it, you already know it. What's the next step? How do you get to the next level? Or you may be thinking that your company won't support this. To that, I say that sometimes you have to make that investment in yourself, and then you have to prove it. It's like that ball player that is in the last year of his contract and postpones his negotiation for an extension to have the best season that he can have and increase his value on the back end. If you want to earn, you have to learn. I don't remember who said that. It might have been Myron Golden, one of my virtual mentors. But if you want to earn, you have to learn. Overall, my recommendation is that you start where you are at and do what you can with what you have. And we've designed the Academy to meet you exactly there. So another quote to share: I'd rather be an amateur in the new than an expert in the old. This is Tony Araimi, a pastor in Houston. And what this says to me is this is about embracing change. This is about embracing and walking boldly into the future. I mean, imagine it's the early 20th century and cars are starting to pepper the streets of your town. Would you rather be the world's best buggy whip manufacturer, or would you rather be your town's first auto mechanic? My answer would be the latter. Okay, so finally, let's talk about the Academy. As I alluded to, this is designed to be delivered over 8 weeks. Each week, there's going to be live training that is going to talk about all the things that have made Layertown what it is, this methodology that we have created, talk about technology integration strategies, human-centered design, project collaboration best practices, and not just the design. We've been talking mostly about the design today, and that's a critical component. That's where the focus is. But from that, transitioning into the build and those implementation strategies, and how do you take that technology stack that you have identified through design, how do you then go find those integrators who can help you deliver those solutions, the best products, the best teams, the best integration, and bringing in the right team to see that to day two operations. We'll help you stay on top of emerging smart trends in smart spaces and also teach you about leadership and decision making in this new space. So the value of just this piece alone is easily $12,500. That's an easy number to put on this when you think of everything that you get out of it. But that's not all. You'll also get lifetime access to video replays, workbooks and study guides designed for each session to help you work along, PDFs that you can print off and work on if you're a pen and paper guy, or that you can follow digitally. The tools and templates that we have developed over this time, as we discuss them in the course, we'll be rolling those out to you as well, and you'll have access to all of those. I'll also be scheduling office hours. So I'll have a block every week into which you can schedule time to meet with me individually, ask me questions, places that you're struggling on. We can go over specific projects that you're working on and talk through those. And finally, 6 months access, free access to the private membership group. You know what, let's make this 12 months. 12 months access to the private membership group. That's a $97 a month value, and that's going to give you that access to your peer group, other innovators who are going through the program who are working in this space and just help you along the journey. You'll have the office hours with me, plus your peer group, and all the material that we've shown here, easily a value of over $21,000. Hopefully that math is correct. And this is where I'm supposed to say, but don't worry, you're not going to have to pay $21,000 for all of this. I'm not even, if I was to charge you half of that, wouldn't it be worth it? I'm not going to go through all that, but you're not. Everything you see here is the price for this is $997 a month. That is the price that we are going to be offering it is for. But for the first 100 souls, brave souls who sign up now to be my beta group, the first cohort that we're putting through this process, you're going to get these classes live, whereas most of the cohorts in the future, most of those classes are going to be pre-recorded. So there's some value in being first, but an even greater value is we're offering it for the first 100 people for $747. So that's the pitch. That's what we've got working here. That's what we're working on. I hope that this is resonating with you. I hope it makes sense to you. I hope you're getting this and that you're ready to start this journey on elevating your space, the projects that you're working on, taking them to a new level and learning so that you can earn. So if you want to follow this, you can type this link into a new browser window, layer10.com/academy, or use a QR code if you are so inclined, and you can sign up there. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I want to share some more things with you. I want to talk about Miller's Landing. This is that project that is currently on hold. It's not being built right now, but this was one of those first clients where I asked that question, why? And it's a 65-acre development in the heart of Castle Rock. It's on the site of the old landfill in town. Castle Rock is actually the town that we live in. It's just a couple of miles from here. And every time I drive by and just see dirt there, I'm always anxious to see it start moving again. And it was very interesting development. And it's residential, office, retail, restaurant, hospitality, even talked about a man-made lake that we were going to put in the center with a wave pool and different things. Really interesting stuff. But the most exciting part about it is how it's one of the most technology aggressive clients that we've ever had. We were looking at all kinds of exciting new technology, from license plate recognition of everybody that came in and out of the property to fight crime, and talking to the town of Castle Rock and Douglas County about integrating that more broadly, investing with them in a system that covered all of Castle Rock. We talked about facial recognition, which is rife with issues, but that was on the table. We talked about very forward-thinking digital wayfinding and solar power and integrating all these pieces and how to build community so that the residents felt like they had access to all the same, or the visitors of the hotel and the residents and the office employees that were all coming to the space, that they had access to all the same amenities and they understood what was going on. It was very exciting design sessions that we went through that. Again, that's on mothballs right now, but hopefully it will start up here this year. And Scott Springer, so Sean Temple was who I had lunch with that day and pitched him on Layer 10 for Miller's Landing. Scott Springer is his partner, the managing partner. The name of their firm is P3 Advisors. And this is not a picture of Scott, by the way. This is just clip art. But nonetheless, these are his words. I'm not going to read it to you. You can read it if you're so inclined. But, it was working with him and working with that team. And it was just one of the more exciting pieces of work that we do to look at something of that magnitude, because everything we had done to that point was a single building at a time. This was this mixed use development that was, it stretched us. And one of the favorite projects I worked on, certainly one that never got built. And I mentioned at the beginning that I am the aspiring author of a book called Building Tomorrow the Layer 10 Way. And before you comment in the chat, I know that the title on the book and this image is misspelled. There are not that many R's in tomorrow and not that many A's in layer, but this is an AI generated image, and sometimes it doesn't get the spelling right. I do not know why, but this is a Mid-Journey image. And I just like the image aside from the spelling. So, in this book, there's 6 sections in this book, and I actually have a draft of the first couple of sections here. And these are those sections: the foundations, giving IT a seat at the table, which might sound familiar. The title of this webinar: define the why before the what. This is the why, the art of the possible, from suits to boots, and the path forward. And so these 6 sections of the book, and this first one being this first webinar, we're going to follow these as a series, a webinar series beginning today. So everybody on this call is on our mailing list, so you will see the announcements of the next version. I hope you continue to join us to learn more about this space. My objective here is that you come out of every one of these webinars, even if you don't sign up for the Academy, you are taking away something of value, that you're able to apply what you learn immediately in your day-to-day job. And to that end, for surviving and making it this far, I do have a special gift for you, a free copy of my ebook, Giving IT a Seat at the Table. This is derived from that first section of the traditional book and follows roughly the framework of what we shared here today. I'm not sure. Is this link yellow? Is it? Okay, the link apparently is not working. So we will send out a new link to everybody on the call so that you can order the book. But we'll make sure we get it in your hands. Hopefully you'll get value out of it, and I enjoy writing, and so this is just part of I figured if we're going to write the book about integrating technology into the built environment, we should write the book. So we're writing the book. Let's talk about another project of ours. This is, I hate to say this in case I have any clients, existing or former clients on the phone, but this is my favorite client I've ever had, Trailhead Community. They are a multifamily development in Littleton, Colorado, that is building housing for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There is a really unknown and unsupported community. In Colorado alone, there are an estimated 30,000 adults that are on the neurodiverse spectrum that are living with parents over the age of 60. Now think about that problem. Think about these kids. They're adults, but we always refer to them as our kids, that they're going to outlive their parents. And there are very little public services, very few public services, and there's no support for these kids. And so we're trying to tackle that problem. Sorry, I just had some audio come into my headset there. And this has been a especially meaningful project for me because my wife and I just so happen to be parents of a daughter who is turning 21 in 2 days, who is on the spectrum. 1 second, please. Okay. She's autistic, and so when the architect approached me about hiring us for this project, he had no idea he was talking to the father of an autistic teenager at the time, and Trailhead has endeared themselves to me, and they not long after starting as our client, they invited me to join the board meetings, and then they invited my wife and I to join the board, and over the last, I guess it was last year, maybe a year now, she and I have taken over the board presidency of Trailhead. So I didn't intend this to be a pitch for Trailhead, but if this is something that resonates with you, If you have a relative or a friend or a neighbor who's in a similar situation, so many of us know somebody who is. And we have so many conversations that just connect with people on this topic. So if that's you, please reach out to me directly and I'll put you in touch. We're fully privately funded, 100% privately funded. We take no public money. And so we're still looking for donations. The building is complete. We have about 20 residents in now, and we're still finishing up things like the kitchen, but it's an extraordinary property, extraordinary project, and I couldn't be prouder to be a part of it, not only as a Layer 10 client, but also personally, very fulfilling for me. And here's another quote that I wanted to share. John Robbins is the president and CEO of a furniture broker that we worked with um, on a previous project, and we were at his design studio, and he turned to me, and I'm just asking questions about integrating the technology into the furniture, and he just never heard anybody ask questions like this before, and he just said, Ken, you just see the world differently, don't you? And that resonated with me, and it's just further validation of what we do and the value that we bring, and so he provided this testimonial for us, and it's one that I like and I like to share. So let's go through some Q&A. We have some questions in here. All right, first question. How do I future-proof my spaces? I get this question a lot, or variations of it, like, what does the future hold? Things like that. And I think about, it makes me think about Jeff Bezos was asked this question once, and he frankly said, I don't know. And that's what I say. That's how I answer. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, holographic, robotic, AI powered security guards. Maybe that's what the future looks like. Maybe in 10 years, everybody will have that. Every office building in the country will have robots patrolling. Dynamically designed drones that swoop inside the building in response to a tragedy, not a tragedy, but in response to an incident. I don't know. What I'm predicting is that there is going to be more of it, whatever that is. The industry is rapidly evolving. It's always moving forward, and it is a challenge to stay on top of trends and stay on top of what is coming down the pike. But it's when when you get to the point you're designing it, that you have to think not with the end in mind, but with what could be down the road. Overinvest in the infrastructure, overinvest in the pipes that will help you deploy whatever that technology is in the future. And one more thing on that question. I resist the term future proof. Future proofing denotes a sort of defensive posture, where I prefer future readying, to prepare yourself for the future, not to defend against it. I think that's a losing battle, trying to defend against the future. Okay, next question. What impact will AI have on the built environment? Okay, similar to the previous question, I suppose, but an excellent question. I'm asked about AI as much as anything else. And as I mentioned, we use it in the running of our business. And I do believe there's going to be significant impacts of AI on the built environment. Again, that's not really what this webinar is about, but maybe I'll probably do a bonus course on this topic, specifically the impacts of AI on the built environment, because I just get the question so much. I'm going to leave it there for now. Next question: how do I get my clients to make the investment? Well, I think it's you have to tell the story. You have to share with them what is possible, what can be done, to talk about not the cost, but the value of what you bring, the money that's being left on the table, because technology isn't given that intentional, thoughtful approach to design like all the other components of the build are. I think you have to start there. You start with the value, don't start with the cost. What about getting VE'd out, value engineered out? Yeah, it's a good question. Very good question. Certainly, we have felt the effects of that with the macroeconomic downturns, the inflation and interest rates and labor costs and supply chain shortages and all the things that we've been living through the last couple of years. That it's getting harder and harder to build. I know that. I see that every day. And often when it comes down to it and we need to cut a couple of $1 million out of the budget, technology gets on the chopping block. And we manage our clients through that process. And similar to what I was talking about in readying yourself for the future, is that you need to invest in the infrastructure. We have that Trailhead project is a good example here. We had to pull back on a lot of the technology, that some of which we had already purchased because our budgets got crunched, and interest rates and all these other financial matters. And um, so what we tell our clients, how we direct them is, when it comes to the systems themselves, the processes, the endpoints, then that's where you cut. But don't cut on the infrastructure. So set a plan. All right, it's not going to be day one, but maybe it'll be year one or year 5 or year 10 that we're going to be able to implement this. And all the guts that you need to get there, or the infrastructure you need to get there, invest in that so that you're ready to as close to possibly plug and play when the budgets allow. When you move into the building, you get operational, and you start making some income off the property. Okay, can I get a group discount for my team? Um, I suppose we can work something out. If you've got other folks you want to bring in from your company, or you are the leader of a group and you'd like to get everybody trained up on this, yeah, reach out to me directly. I'm at kwilkinson@layer10.com, and or you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. Yeah, I'm sure we can work something out. I do live. Next question. Wait. So, next question. Do you do live coaching and training? That's where I was just going to go. That is something also that we're offering. So again, reach out to me and we can figure something out as far as me coming in to your organization and training folks physically in the room, not just virtually. So that is everything. I hope that you got some value out of this today. Again, that is my goal: is that you take actionable strategies away from this time, something that you can implement immediately. And I am going to sign off, but I'll leave this slide open in case I just don't want anybody to miss it. But in the meantime, I hope to see you on the next webinar session. I hope to see you in the classroom, and we'll talk soon. Have a blessed week. Bye now.